Bismillah, Assalamu alaikum. In today's video, I'll be mentioning yet another proof for the truth of Islam. Namely, this is about massive in-depth biblical knowledge in the Quran. Let's get started. So here's the argument. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was an unlettered person in a town far away from Christian and Jewish centers of learning. Neither he nor anyone in Makkah could have had access to biblical knowledge apart from a few stories. Yet the knowledge of biblical text in the Quran is truly massive. This knowledge is about texts in Hebrew, Aramaic, Syriac, and Greek. There is no way Prophet Muhammad ﷺ could have known this except by revelation. Now I'll just give two references to prove my point. The second reference is a large one, but when you see it, you will see why I'm reading it because it's truly impressive. So the first reference is from the revisionist scholar Tom Holland. I link the lecture where he says this, but just look at his words. If Muhammad ﷺ comes of age in a city that is pagan, that is thousands of kilometers from the frontiers with Palestine, if he is illiterate ﷺ, then how on earth are we to explain this text which is full of all these sophisticated cultural references except as a miracle? It would seem that if we are to rely on the Muslim account of how the Quran came into being, that the divine must indeed have penetrated this mortal sublunar world of ours. Just look at how much in-depth, massive biblical knowledge is there in the Quran, and look at the motivations of revisionist clowns like Tom Holland. I think this should give you an idea of how much knowledge is there in the Quran or biblical text. Now I'll give a second reference. This is from Gilliam Dye. Now what he is doing here is he's basically doing uh, he's making a profile of the author of the Quran. Basically looking at Surah Maryam ayat 1 to 63 at what does the author know. Let's read this because this is actually quite mind blowing. He is familiar with Luke 1 and related traditions. He has an intimate knowledge of the traditions related to the Charisma Church, including the Proto-Evangelium of James and the Palm Miracle. He presupposes the connection between these independent traditions. He knows one way or the other the lection of Jeremiah, a text which was clearly not widespread outside the Higiopolite communities. He is familiar with other aspects of Jerusalem Marian liturgy and the Dalmatian narratives. He follows a Christian usage in composing a section on Zechariah and John the Baptist (salam) as preparation for the section on Mary and Jesus (salam) following a Christian usage. Besides, the striking parallels between both sections suggest that Quran Surah Maryam ayat 1 to 33 is not the shortcoming of a complex editorial process but a text with a striking unity and whose organization follows a very precise intention. He practices Christian typological exegesis. If we include the section on Abraham alayhi salam, we shall conclude that he also knows the cycle of Abraham alayhi salam. He has a remarkable homiletic talent being able, for example, to merge episodes like the questioning and presentation of Jesus alayhi salam in the temple in a unique narrative using the literary device of Jesus alayhi salam speaking from the cradle. This implies that he knows at least some of such cradle miracle traditions which are attested about Jesus and other prophets. Alayhim salam. He certainly has some knowledge of Aramaic, at first indirect and more probably direct, and this basically gives an example of a specific word that Quran knows from Aramaic language in this regard regarding the name of Sayyidina Yahya alayhi salam. Since the Jerusalem letter that shows Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has knowledge of Aramaic. Since the Jerusalem liturgy was in Greek, either he has a good command of Greek or he belongs to a multilingual circle where some people can translate or explain the Greek liturgy to non-Greek speakers. He is familiar with literary genre of the Saugitha, another hint to his knowledge of Aramaic and chooses to compose a kind of Arabic Saugitha. This piece is, from a literary point of view, remarkable. This implies that he was an Arab or perfectly bilingual. His knowledge of Christology is good enough to enable him to write a text of conversions which could work as a kind of biggest common Christological denominator. Were he less apt, He might have added unwelcome ideas for at least one of the parties involved. He is, of course, also familiar with some of the texts and convictions which circulated in the movement of the Mu'minun. Nothing suggests that he relies on the oracular words of Muhammad (SAW) thanks to his intimate knowledge of Palestinian Marian liturgical traditions. So basically, the point of all of this is to show the massive in-depth biblical knowledge that is present in the Quran. Now, this guy actually later on tries to argue that someone in Palestine basically made up the Quran, but that claim is actually proven false because we have so many early first century manuscripts. Plus, someone in Palestine would not have been able to speak Arabic like this. Now, why is this important? This shows that the Quran has why is all of that reference important? This shows that Quran has a massive amount of knowledge of biblical texts, many of which were lost or buried were in multiple languages like Syriac, Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic. A lot of the common arguments against Islam are based on the assumption that the author of Quran did not have a knowledge of biblical texts. One example, Mary, sister of Aaron. All of those arguments are dead because of the sheer massive amount of biblical knowledge in the Quran. Moreover, any of these claims that Prophet Muhammad (SAW) plagiarized from a particular source would have to mean a man in the desert 1400 years ago somehow learned Syriac, Hebrew, Greek, Arabic, Aramaic, ancient Egyptian, and Babylonian languages because of the historical accuracy of the Quran. I made other videos on the topic. This massive amount of knowledge could not have come from a particular human at that time period. No one in Arabia could have known this. This is an absolutely massive amount for this being a revelation, Quran being a revelation from God because of the sheer massive amount of biblical knowledge that was impossible for Prophet Muhammad (SAW) to know at that time. So I think it's a pretty powerful argument for the truth of Islam. Inshallah, I hope you have enjoyed this video. Inshallah, I'll keep making more content like this. If you did enjoy this video, please like and share it. Till next time, Assalamu alaikum.